When I crossed over, it was the most humiliating moment for the villain in the book. The plot in the book had already reached its later stages. Under the combined pressure from the male and female leads, his family had finally declared bankruptcy, and because the villain was being boycotted by the entire industry, he had no choice but to sell his labor to make a living. When I arrived, he was surrounded by people at the construction site. A cheap boxed meal worth a few yuan was knocked to the ground in the scuffle, the bland vegetables and greasy fatty meat inside trampled into mud underfoot. Right, now, save him, warm him up, the system excitedly shouted in my mind. I slowly walked over, and under everyone's gaze, pulled out a black card and slapped it onto the villain's face. Follow me, 20,000 a month. For a full 10 seconds after I said those words, no one on the scene could react. The black card stuck to Lu Ziyuan's forehead by sweat slowly slid off, revealing his sharply defined face. Taking a closer look, I was even more satisfied. Not bad looking. Would you like to come with me? Those who had been surrounding and bullying him earlier silently backed away, eyeing me with clear apprehension. Lu Ziyuan hung his head, not moving a muscle. The atmosphere seemed to have frozen in place. The system had long started screaming in my head, "Ah, host. How could you humiliate the villain like this? He's going to make a comeback someday. Aren't you afraid he'll take revenge on you?" I gave a slight, disdainful smile, took off the Patek Philippe from my wrist, bent down, and lifted Lu Ziyuan's chin with the watch strap. "Agree, or not?" I asked for the third time, not bothering to hide the impatience in my eyes, as if I could walk away at any moment. I want Lu Ziyuan to know that he has no capital to put on airs right now, under my intense gaze. Lu Ziyuan closed his eyes in embarrassment, but didn't refuse. He picked up the black card that had fallen on the ground and answered me in a hoarse voice. "Fine." I was quite satisfied with his affirmative answer, and the smile at the corner of my mouth became a bit more genuine. I casually tossed the watch into Lu Ziyuan's arms, and when I saw him reach out to catch it, I smiled even more meaningfully. "Good dog," I praised. "This watch is your reward, on the way back." The system kept chattering at me incessantly. "You humiliated the villain in front of so many people today. He must already hold a grudge against you." The system was so frightened its code became disordered. "He's going to turn dark. He's definitely going to get back at you." "So what?" I propped my head up and looked at Lu Ziyuan, completely indifferent. "You only told me to help Lu Ziyuan make a comeback. You never said I couldn't keep him. That's not how it works." The system was on the verge of. "I wanted you to stay by his side, encourage him, help him behind the scenes, silently redeem him, not use this humiliating method." I remained completely unfazed. "If you prefer such a thankless approach, you can do it yourself, or find another host. I really don't care either way." The system immediately calmed down. "Wait, host, please calm down. The mission still needs to be completed." This system, with just a little scare, compromises on everything. I laughed to myself inwardly, but kept a straight face, simply staring at Lu Ziyuan with an inscrutable gaze. In a rush, I hadn't prepared new clothes for Lu Ziyuan, so he got into my van covered in dust and sweat. To be honest, I was quite disgusted and sat as far away from him as possible. He could sense my disgust and proactively shifted away. In just a short quarter of an hour, he had learned to read my expressions, which pleasantly surprised me. It seems he's not an untamable dog after all. Keeping him around for amusement might not be such a bad idea. Come to think of it, I should thank the system for the identity it assigned me. In order to fully support the villain's second venture, it made me the heiress of a multinational conglomerate, granting me access to top-tier resources and wealth, even allowing me to outshine the current male lead. But the path the system initially set for me was to grovel and coax the villain into pulling himself together. Claiming that a villain who had fallen from grace must be incredibly fragile, and that I should be gentle and considerate, using the least offensive method to beg him to accept my support, I pretended to agree, but after it bound to me, I revealed my true nature, tossed the villain a black card, and bluntly told him I wanted to be his sugar mommy. As for the system, I had long figured out that going off script wouldn't cause any real trouble. Its screaming was just a bit noisy. But muting it was all it took. Now I'm sitting in the nanny car, enjoying the air conditioning and eating fruit, feeling very comfortable. Lu Ziyuan was quiet all the way. When we arrived at my home, he did whatever he was told, behaving so obediently that it was somewhat unusual. The butler was very surprised when he saw me bring back a dirty man. Miss, if you need a male companion, I can select a suitable partner for you. This man you brought back is. The old butler looked Lu Ziyuan up and down, then gave me a look of disappointment, as if lamenting how my standards had suddenly dropped so low. I cleared my throat lightly and waved for the servant to take Lu Ziyuan to freshen up and change. Don't judge him by how he looks now. Once he's cleaned up, he's actually quite presentable, I explained to the butler. Really, you'll see for yourself in a moment. The old butler didn't believe me, but he didn't call me out on it. He just shook his head, sighed, and walked away. I sat on the sofa with my arms crossed, my mind wandering wildly, starting to imagine what Lu Ziyuan would look like all cleaned up. Miss you, a low, hoarse voice snapped me out of my thoughts. I came back to my senses and turned to look. With that one glance, I found myself unable to look away. Washed clean of the grime and soot on his face and body, Lu Ziyuan looked fair and tall, standing there. He had a slender figure and delicate features. At first glance, he looked no different from a fresh-faced college boy. His face still carried a rosy flush from the steam, his skin fair and tender, looking utterly delectable. As I watched, I began to sense something was off. Didn't you say he's been working at the construction site for a month? Why is there no trace of being beaten down by the sun? I asked the system. The system replied quite proudly, the villain is a top-tier man. His external qualities are no less impressive than the male leads. He simply doesn't tan. I thought for a moment, then raised my hand to signal Lu Ziyuan to come over. From the lofty position of a group president, he had fallen to the status of a stray dog, forced to do the hardest and heaviest work at the construction site. His pride had long been worn down over the past month. Now, as my kept male pet, he walked over with restraint at my beckoning, but unfortunately, I didn't like seeing him compromise and endure humiliation, so I raised my hand and slapped him across the face. Don't give me that look as if I forced you into this. I hate it, I said disdainfully. Since you agreed to be my dog, you should have the self-awareness of one. I glared at him and commanded, kneel. Lu Ziyuan clenched his fists, but without hesitation, he quickly knelt at my feet. It was clear he had no experience with this kind of thing. His kneeling was anything but seductive, far from the male models I had seen before, but his face made up for this flaw, so I was merciful and didn't make things difficult for him. Do you know your place? I asked him. Lu Ziyuan lowered his eyelashes, his Adam's apple bobbing slightly, and whispered softly, I am, misused dog. The system screamed in my mind. The villain has been disciplined and restrained his whole life. When has he ever said such words? Huff huff. So thrilling. I slammed the system shut with a snap. Wrong. What should you call me? I pressed the tip of my shoe against Lu Ziyuan's chest. Say it again. Lu Ziyuan looked confused. Young miss. I increased the pressure of my foot on him. Wrong. Me, miss. Wrong. You, boss. Try again. With every title he uttered that didn't suit my fancy. I shifted my foot an inch lower on his chest. Just as I was about to step down near the base of his legs, a spark of inspiration finally struck him, and he cried out, Master, Master, is this form of address acceptable to you? Sweat had long beaded at his temples, his Adam's apple bobbing restlessly as he desperately yearned to escape. I was somewhat satisfied and finally lifted my foot away. Considering your unfamiliarity with this line of work, I'll let you off for now, I said. Rising to my feet and leaving the disheveled Lu Ziyuan behind, I'll find you a suitable trainer. But don't misunderstand, I'm not into any niche hobbies. It's mainly to help you recognize your place and learn how to better please me. After saying these words, I didn't bother to see Lu Ziyuan's reaction and walked into the elevator by myself. Now that the villain is dealt with, it's time to understand the main characters. The system revealed to me that the villain is the female lead stepbrother. Having grown up in a high-pressure environment, he developed unspeakable feelings for the bright and vibrant female lead during their time together. However, the female lead fell for the male lead, a transfer student at the elite school. After she accidentally showed her interest in the male lead, the villain began targeting him at every turn. But how could the male lead's identity be simple, in the middle of the plot? The orphan in everyone's eyes suddenly transformed into the long-lost youngest son of a prominent family in Haishur. The relationship between the male and female leads immediately became open and legitimate. Thanks to the relentless obstruction by the antagonist earlier, their bond grew even stronger. as if tempered by adversity. The antagonist, however, was not so fortunate. The newly empowered male lead swiftly launched his revenge against him. The female lead had long resented the antagonist's controlling and possessive behavior toward her. She stole confidential documents from the antagonist's company and handed them to the male lead. Together, they collaborated within the industry to drive the antagonist into bankruptcy. The story is full of holes, but since it's a sweet romance centered around the male and female leads, no one really pays attention to these details. The system told me that after going bankrupt, the villain started from scratch and made a comeback, later delivering a harsh revenge on the male and female leads. However, in the end, he couldn't overcome the protagonist's plot armor and narrowly lost before exiting the stage. In the book, his comeback is described in just a few sentences, but in reality, it actually required a selflessly devoted woman to support him from behind the scenes. Yet, behind all the glamour and success, the book erases any trace of this woman's existence. With these thoughts in mind, I began flipping through the information about the male lead, He Lin Han. He Lin Han's biological parents are merchants in Haishur, prominent figures in the city's elite circles. For many years, they had persistently searched for their youngest son. After recognizing He Lin Han and bringing him home, they eagerly introduced him to high society and began involving him in company affairs. It must be said, even after missing out on over a decade of knowledge in corporate management, with just a little cultivation, he could handle everything with ease. Coupled with the female lead's assistance, making the antagonist go bankrupt didn't seem like an impossible feat. Thinking of the female lead, I shook my head inwardly. She came to the Liu family at the age of 13, and Mr. Liu treated her as if she were his own daughter. After the Liu couple passed away in a car accident, Liu Ziyuan, as her stepbrother, had done everything he could for her, but no matter how careful you are, it's hard to guard against a thief within. Liu Zhixue actually stole the company's confidential information and handed it directly to He Lin Han, showing no regard for the Liu family's survival. I wonder what expression Liu Ziyuan will have when he learns the truth about this sister he so dearly loved. Just thinking about it, I'm already growing impatient. I have decided to expand my business empire in Haishur. Anyway, the system has given me enough money to squander for dozens of lifetimes, which is just enough for me to throw a few obstacles in the way of the male and female leads in the business world. So within just 1 month, a financial group named Sang Yufei One emerged out of nowhere and, with its first move, snatched away almost half of the He family's business deals. The He family also sensed that this newcomer meant trouble. Just yesterday, their CEO sent me a meeting request, and I graciously agreed to meet with him today. We didn't meet in my office. I waited downstairs in the coffee shop for the He family's representative. Sure enough, it was He Lin Han who arrived. When he saw me, he paused for a moment, glanced around, and only then confirmed that I was the person he was looking for. I had recognized him the moment he stepped into the coffee shop, no surprise there, as the male lead. His appearance was truly outstanding. Compared to Liu Ziyuan, he can be considered equally matched. Seeing my keen interest in observing him, He Lin Han cleared his throat lightly. Miss Yu, hello, I am He Lin Han, the CEO of the He Group. I came here today to discuss the matter regarding the land in the western part of the city with you. My phone rang, and I pressed the answer button before flipping it over and placing it aside. After doing all this, I looked at him with great interest, smiling, and said, "There's no hurry with this matter." He Lin Han looked at her with guarded eyes. Then, "Miss Yu, what do you want to discuss with me?" I took a sip of coffee and smiled at He Lin Han. "I wonder, Mr. He, if you have any thoughts about a marriage alliance." The conversation was interrupted by two people. One was Liu Ziyuan, the other was Liu Zhixue, but Liu Zhixue rushed to He Lin Han's side, while Liu Ziyuan stood outside the coffee shop, holding a phone that was still on a call. Silently staring at me, I suppressed a laugh and leisurely sat in my seat, clearly seeing the flicker of darkness in Liu Ziyuan's eyes as he looked at Liu Zhixue. Can't forget old feelings. How interesting. As the female lead of this book, Liu Zhixue has a very pure appearance, wearing a white dress. She looked as captivating as a lotus flower emerging from water. She called out to He Lin Han, sitting down beside him as if declaring her sovereignty, intimately linking her arm with his. "Lin Han, didn't you say you were here to discuss business? Why are you drinking coffee here?" As she spoke, She glanced at me as if by accident. And this lady is. I simply smiled without speaking, not even bothering to look at her directly. Lin Han quickly explained, saying that I was the chairman of Sang Yufei Wan and was currently discussing cooperation with him. I didn't respond, but instead looked up at Lu Zhixue while taking a sip of my coffee. Sure enough, Lu Zhixue's expression changed. She must have already sensed something, and this was exactly the result I wanted to see. Now that my goal was achieved, I simply picked up my bag and left. Before going, I deliberately said ambiguously, "Mr. He, my proposal, I hope you'll consider it." After saying that, I picked up my phone and walked away with flair, completely disregarding the trouble my words might cause the male and female leads. After leaving the cafe, Lu Ziyuan instinctively took my bag from me and silently followed behind me. Even after we got into the car, his mood remained gloomy. I touched up my lipstick in the mirror and saw Lu Ziyuan watching me with pursed lips. Realizing I was looking at him, he quickly averted his gaze. "Why aren't you saying anything?" I asked. "A puppy shouldn't keep secrets from its owner. Don't you know that?" After a month of training, Lu Ziyuan had now accepted his identity quite well. He had no objections to me calling him a puppy, but he lowered his head somewhat dejectedly. "Do you want to marry him?" I heard, he asked, then realizing his tone was inappropriate, quickly tried to cover it up. "I mean, are you abandoning me, master?" I finished applying my lipstick and finally had a moment to turn and look at him. "Men and dogs have never been in conflict," I whispered in his ear, my fingers brushing over his Adam's apple, feeling the tension in his body, and smiled. "Or are you jealous? Puppies don't have the right to be jealous, do they?" I let go of my hand and suddenly changed the subject. "I heard you've been starting a business recently. How's it going?" My tone was casual, as if commenting on the nice weather today. "I only gave you 200,000. Is that enough for starting a business?" I'm sorry." His face instantly flushed red. "I shouldn't have kept it from you." When it came to entrepreneurship, I stopped treating Lu Ziyuan like a dog. "It's fine, I still know everything anyway, but you really shouldn't have started a business behind my back." His gaze froze, and he lowered his head. "If you don't tell me, what if the money isn't enough? What if things go wrong?" I reached out my hand to him. "Give me your company plan. After I've reviewed it, I'll consider whether to invest." Hearing my words, Lu Ziyuan suddenly lifted his head, a brilliant light bursting in his eyes. "Why you want to invest in me?" I shook my index finger. "That depends on your business proposal." But Lu Ziyuan also knew that as long as I was interested in his startup and willing to let a little slip through my fingers, his chances of entrepreneurial success would multiply several times over. Now his gaze towards me is intensely fervent, his hand trembling as he reaches for his phone. Wait. I have the PPT on my phone. Please take a look first." "No, I'll send it to you. You can view it on your computer." The screen is bigger and clearer. Lu Ziyuan was practically falling over himself with gratitude, all because I suggested taking a look at his proposal. I watched him fumbling in front of me and laughed inwardly, redeeming the villain. Now, just giving him a little sweetness feels like a divine blessing to him. How can it not be considered redemption? I invested in Lu Ziyuan's new company. He was especially happy. And the emotion in his eyes when he looked at me was completely different. I am very familiar with that kind of look. A gaze that holds a bit of admiration, a bit of affection, and is mixed with fear. Just like a dog, give it a bone and it becomes obedient. In the evening, I watched Lu Ziyuan willingly put on the collar and tighten the chain around his neck. The thin chain gleamed with a silvery white luster in the dimly lit room. I couldn't see Lu Ziyuan's eyes clearly, but I could hear his heavy and rapid breathing. Just as the surrounding temperature rose to a scorching level, I let go, untied the silk scarf I had bound him with, got up, and left. "Go back." My lazy voice came from the bathroom, making Lu Ziyuan, who hadn't yet fully woken up, feel as if he had been drenched with a bucket of cold water, although I had always treated him this way for the past month or so, never having any substantial contact with him. This was the first time Lu Ziyuan felt so disappointed. This disappointment made him lose his head, and he chased after me to the bathroom door, asking, "Why won't you touch me?" I was soaking in the bathtub, still a bit confused. "What do you mean by not touching you?" Then it dawned on me, and I let out a cold laugh. "You dare question me?" I slapped the water's surface. "Someone like you is just for amusement. I have a cleanliness obsession. I don't like dirty men." My words struck Lu Ziyuan like a thunderbolt. Dirty. His voice began to spiral out of control, even starting to pound on the door. I'm not dirty, I'm not dirty, no, master, I'm not dirty, I haven't touched any woman, I'm still clean. Annoyed by the noise, I casually grabbed a towel and threw it over, so loud, Lu Ziyuan didn't dare to pound on the door anymore, and even his voice abruptly vanished. Seeing that he had calmed down, I leisurely spoke up. Dirty doesn't necessarily refer to the body. Tell me, who was that woman at the cafe today? Lu Ziyuan instinctively replied, she's He Lin Han's girlfriend, and she used to be my stepsister. He reacted quickly. You suspect I like her, he said in disbelief. Why would you think I like her? She's still my stepsister. That makes it even more likely, I said. Childhood sweethearts. Innocent and close, forbidden love, tsk. It's just like a novel. This time, Lu Ziyuan was practically beside himself with rage. My taste isn't that poor to fall for such a despicable person. I must have been blind to have taken her in back then. Otherwise, how could I have ended up in this miserable state? Since things had already come to this point, he simply laid out the whole story between him and Lu Zixue. I listened as he indignantly cursed Lu Zixue for being ungrateful and shameless, lamenting how much he regretted raising her for so many years. In his agitation, he even dragged his deceased father and stepmother into the tirade. For the past month, he had been putting on a cautious and reserved front in front of me. This was the first time I had seen him so animated, when he had cursed himself hoarse. I opened the door wrapped in a towel. His eyes immediately went wide. And he awkwardly looked away, but I reached out and pinched his face, forcing him to look me in the eyes. How come I never noticed before? You're actually quite innocent, I chuckled, then lightly pushed Lu Ziyuan away. While he was still in a daze, I gave him the order, I'm giving you 2 months. During this time, you can focus all your attention on company matters. I advised him, settle your scores, repay your grievances. In these 2 months, show me your capabilities. Lu Ziyuan looked up in pleasant surprise, instantly filled with fighting spirit. All right, regarding the land in the western part of the city, after the He Group promised a 6% concession, Sang Yufiwen successfully reached a cooperation agreement with the He Group. After learning about this, Lu Ziyuan stubbornly held out for a full 3 hours without speaking to me. After dinner, he wiped his mouth and tried to leave, without saying a word. I slammed my chopsticks down on the table with a sharp crack. Lu Ziyuan knew when to yield and when to stand firm. Almost the instant I slammed down the chopsticks, he dropped to his knees with a thud. I'm sorry, I was wrong, he apologized quickly. Please don't be angry, master. He knelt and apologized so quickly that I didn't know what to do with him. After a moment, I asked him, what kind of attitude are you putting on? Do you have any dissatisfaction with my decision? I wouldn't dare. He said, but his eyes were clearly full of grievance. But with so many companies in Haishur, why did you specifically choose the He Corporation? You know very well. Of course I knew, but only a fool would turn down money. Why should I give up nearly 10 million in profit because of Lu Ziyuan? I looked at Lu Ziyuan, reached out and pressed down on his head. He is your enemy. What does that have to do with me? What you need to do is bring him down with your own abilities, understand? Lu Ziyuan, unable to lift his head under my pressure, twitched his fingers restlessly and said in a hoarse voice, yes, I understand, master. After giving him a warning, I decided to offer him a sweet reward, though it might also be poison. The day after tomorrow, I will host a banquet. The upper-class elites of Haishur will all be there, I said, glancing at Lu Ziyuan, including He Lin Han and your sister. She is not my sister, Lu Ziyuan quickly retorted. Only then realizing what I had said, he looked up at me, and I asked that question, will you attend as my +1? At such close distance, I could clearly see Lu Ziyuan's pupils tremble violently. I waited for his answer. I've never hidden the fact that I'm keeping a man. In business circles, it's inevitable that some people try to please me using various methods, but I always brush them off with the excuse that I have a jealous partner at home. The outside world is quite curious about the man I'm keeping, but since I haven't publicly revealed Lu Ziyuan's name, no one knows it's him yet. Today, when I suggested bringing him to the banquet, it was to test how comfortable he is with the role of being a kept man. His reaction will determine my attitude toward him. Fortunately, the villain did not disappoint me. He only hesitated for a moment before nodding and saying, "All right, this actually surprised me, you don't mind. Once I bring you into the spotlight, everyone will know your identity, you know." I deliberately lowered my voice and whispered in his ear. Lu Ziyuan trembled slightly but did not pull away. "I don't mind." His gaze suddenly softened. "If it weren't for you, I might still be on the construction site, bullied so badly I couldn't even afford a meal. But you were willing to support me, willing to help me start a business. You were the one who gave me a hand up." I raised an eyebrow. Such a reasonable villain, perhaps he doesn't really need anyone to save him after all. Whenever he wished, endless vitality would grow within his soul. The branches he exposed above ground were trampled into the mud, yet the roots hidden underground seized every opportunity to grow wildly. Once the right moment arrived, they would burst forth from the earth. I admit, my heart skipped a beat for a moment, as I expected, when I brought Lu Ziyuan to the banquet venue. Everyone subtly glanced in his direction. People came one after another to flatter me, but each of them would take a look at Lu Ziyuan. The bolder ones would even ask, "The gentleman behind you is truly handsome. May I ask what his relationship is with you, Miss Yu?" I just smiled ambiguously without saying a word. This ambiguous attitude made everyone around us look understanding, and their gazes toward Lu Ziyuan immediately turned contemptuous and mocking. The male and female leads, who arrived late, changed their expressions as soon as they entered the hall and saw Lu Ziyuan and me surrounded by the crowd. I also saw them and turned to give Lu Ziyuan a meaningful look. "Ziyuan, we have guests, go and greet them." Back when the Lu and he family matters caused a citywide uproar, everyone present was well aware of the relationship between these three individuals. Now, hearing that I wanted Lu Ziyuan to personally entertain his former enemy and stepsister, they all cast glances filled with anticipation for the drama about to unfold. I pretended to be oblivious to the strange atmosphere in the room, casually holding my wine glass while chatting and laughing with others, but from the corner of my eye, I had long locked onto those three not far away. The microphone pinned to Lu Ziyuan's lapel clearly transmitted their conversation into my earpiece. Lu Zhixue appeared somewhat restrained upon seeing Lu Ziyuan. Perhaps feeling guilty about what she had done in the past. However, she seemed more concerned about another matter at the moment. Brother, why are you here?" Lu Zhixue found it hard to believe. Could the rumors be true? "Brother, how could you fall to such a state?" Lu Ziyuan's tone remained unchanged. "What rumors?" Lu Zhixue was at a loss for words, but Lin Han sneered coldly. "No wonder I haven't seen you at the construction site these past few months. So you've become some rich woman's little lover. I wonder which lady you've sweet-talked into such a daze that she actually brought you to Miss Yu's banquet." He lowered his voice in warning. "Miss Yu is not someone you can get involved with. I advise you not to harbor any illusions of soaring to great heights through this banquet." I raised an eyebrow, surprised that they hadn't connected me with Lu Ziyuan at all, and found it quite ridiculous that they were still spouting such nonsense here. Meanwhile, Lu Zhixue, who had been looking at Lu Ziyuan with disappointment, suddenly turned around and raised her voice. "Lin Han." In reality, Lin Han's warning to Lu Ziyuan was entirely within the normal range. To outsiders, it simply sounded like he was trying to cut off Lu Ziyuan's ambition of climbing the social ladder. However, Lu Zhixue still held a grudge over that meeting between me and Lin Han months ago, with seeds of suspicion already buried deep in her heart. His words immediately put her on edge. Lin Han paused for a moment, then smoothly comforted Lu Zhixue. "Xiaoxue, you know I only love you." Lu Ziyuan let out a light laugh, interrupting the male and female leads' mutual confessions. "You two are already quite late. Shouldn't you go greet the hosts?" "I can understand Mr. He's lack of etiquette since he grew up outside." Lu Ziyuan turned to Lu Zhixue, his tone icy. "And what about you, Lu Zhixue? Have you returned all the etiquette you learned over so many years in the Lu family to your teachers?" Someone in the crowd couldn't hold back a laugh. Lin Han scanned the area, and those laughs quickly died away. However, he noticed me watching him, pulled Lu Zhixue along, glared at Lu Ziyuan, and then came over to greet me. "Miss Yu, I am Lin Han, and this is my beloved, Lu Zhixue. It's an honor to attend your evening banquet." He gave a slight bow toward me. Although Lu Zhixue's gaze toward me held a hint of hostility, she still obediently nodded at me. "Good evening, Miss Yu." The smile on my lips deepened as I lifted my eyes and met Lu Ziyuan's gaze from outside the crowd. The dinner has begun, I said with a smile, tilting my wine glass slightly. Everyone, please enjoy yourselves. Not long after the dinner started, Lu Ziyuan quietly slipped out for some fresh air, and Lu Zhixue followed closely behind him. I found a quiet bar counter and focused on listening to the sounds coming through my earpiece. Brother, it was Lu Zhixue calling out to Lu Ziyuan. Lu Ziyuan's tone was completely flat. You don't deserve to be my sister, brother. Lu Zhixue began to cry. I know you hate me, but I had no choice. Lin Han needs to return to the He family. Only by achieving great things can he be truly accepted. She was crying pitifully. But my microphone clearly captured the sound of Lu Ziyuan's impatient inhale. So you stole our Lu family's secrets and gave them to He Lin Han. Lu Ziyuan laughed in disbelief. You've handed over your pledge of allegiance, but you've destroyed the Lu family's multi-generational foundation. Lu Zhixue cried even louder. Yes, but I just wanted to help Lin Han. You've lived in comfort since childhood, but Lin Han is different. There were times he couldn't even afford food. He needs this opportunity more. This outrageous statement not only stunned Lu Ziyuan but made even me gasp in shock. Lu Ziyuan suddenly let out a cold laugh. You've confessed to stealing company confidential documents with your own words. That's the crime of infringing on business secrets. You can expect a court summons. After saying that, Lu Zhixue's voice was left far behind. I never expected Lu Ziyuan to have such a trick up his sleeve. After a moment of stunned silence, I couldn't help but laugh. He Lin Han, who had walked over, also smiled and asked, What are you thinking about? Miss you, you look very happy. I glanced at him and said, Nothing much. I just remembered that my puppy is teething, and it made me a little happy. He Lin Han was surprised. Miss you, do you keep a dog? Yes. I glanced toward the door. A big wolfhound. My answer seemed to catch He Lin Han off guard. He gave an awkward smile and was momentarily at a loss for words. You still haven't answered my question from last time. I took the initiative to say, does the He family have plans for an arranged marriage? Taking advantage of his daze, I stood up and walked toward the center of the hall. Lu Ziyuan bent toward me, and I placed my hand in his palm. After he led me up the stairs, just as he was about to step back, I tightened my grip on his hand and pulled him to my side. The people below were already stirred up by this sudden addition to the proceedings. And when they saw me making Lu Ziyuan stand by my side, they all looked shocked. Even He Lin Han didn't react in time. In his impression, Lu Ziyuan and I should have had no connection at all. Unfortunately, they arrived too late and missed the scene where I personally brought Lu Ziyuan with me. Just as Lu Zhixue had composed herself and returned, she saw Lu Ziyuan standing beside me. Our hands were still clasped together, but Lu Zhixue jumped to the conclusion that Lu Ziyuan was pestering me. Especially the people around were all looking shocked, as if they were stunned by this scene. Lu Zhixue, who had just been scolded and threatened, immediately bit her lip and reacted in an instant. She shouted, Brother, come down quickly. Seeing everyone's eyes focused on her, Lu Zhixue pretended to be anxious and said, I know you can't accept the fact that our family has gone bankrupt, but poverty doesn't mean you should lose your ambition. You can't deliberately get close to Miss You just because you're eager for quick success. As she spoke, her eyes reddened, looking as if she were genuinely concerned for Lu Ziyuan. I looked at her with a half-smile and didn't have anyone stop her. Seeing my tacit approval, Lu Zhixue put on an even more dramatic performance. And what's more, I've heard that Miss You already has a fiancé. Brother, you can't stoop so low as to meddle in someone else's relationship. Her words were filled with righteous indignation, and if someone didn't know the full story, they might actually be intimidated by her. Unfortunately, everyone present was shrewd and had access to more information than she did. Now, looking at their expressions, not a single one dared to step forward and join her in condemning Lu Ziyuan. The air suddenly fell into an eerie silence. Xiaoxue. He Lin Han appeared with a stern face. Hurry over here. He was a bit smarter than Lu Zhixue, who couldn't read the room, and knew that the atmosphere was off. But Lu Zhixue, driven by emotion, stubbornly stood her ground. What's wrong? Why aren't you saying anything? She blinked her big eyes, looking utterly innocent. Don't you think it's despicable to ruin someone else's relationship? If someone loses their dignity and shame just for money, isn't that person utterly pathetic? She was getting more and more agitated as she spoke. and I thought it might be because she was frightened by what Lu Ziyuan had said about the crime of infringing on commercial secrets, believing that Lu Ziyuan was deliberately trying to scare her, so she came to save face. I looked at her with pity. Everyone, the purpose of tonight's banquet is twofold. First, to celebrate the upcoming listing of the company I founded, and second, to introduce to you all the founder of Xinjiang Technology. I saw Lu Zhishue's face in the audience suddenly turn pale. I glanced around, noticing the somewhat unpleasant expressions on everyone's faces, and smiled as I read out that name, Lu Ziyuan. The crowd erupted in murmurs, but in reality, Lu Ziyuan's surprise was no less than theirs. After all, I had told him he was only attending as my lover, yet without his knowledge, I had proactively revealed his entrepreneurial endeavors. At this banquet, everyone present was a valuable connection. Now with my recommendation, his path forward would only become smoother. Lin Han suddenly looked up, disbelieving. Xinjiang Technology, that Xinjiang Technology. I smiled and replied, yes, that's the one, the Xinjiang Technology that developed the upgraded software. Looking at him, I said meaningfully, when it comes to skills, it's best to have them yourself. Things that are stolen or snatched can never compare to having genuine talent and real learning. Lin Han's face turned red and then pale. The people around began to whisper among themselves. Initially, the leak of the Lu family company's confidential information wasn't made public, but rumors always find a way to spread, and everyone had heard a little about it. Now, hearing my clear implication, their gazes toward Lin Han immediately turned contemptuous. No wonder he was able to enter the company right after being recognized. He took a shortcut, someone murmured quietly. Lin Han, accused by countless gazes, felt utterly ashamed. Just then, Lu Zhixue threw herself into his arms, crying, Lin Han, that Yu Zhao must have some improper relationship with Lu Ziyuan. She said those things just to provoke you. Don't fall for it. Meanwhile, Lin Han's mind was racing. He had returned to the He family for less than a year and hadn't fully established his footing in the company. The Lu family secrets he had brought to the He Corporation had become useless after the sudden rise of Xinjiang Technology. In short, his position in the He Corporation was now precarious, and at that moment, I threw out the bait. Lin Han, I wonder if the He family has any plans for a marriage alliance. Lu Zhixue screamed, so that's your plan? Lin Han is mine. Who do you think you are, daring to snatch him away? She turned this high-end banquet into a farce. And I couldn't be bothered to deal with her. So I just looked at Lin Han. Before Lin Han could react, Lu Ziyuan, who was standing beside me, caused a scene. He turned away somewhat awkwardly, as if wiping the corner of his eye, then he turned back, as if nothing had happened. In front of everyone, I couldn't roll my eyes openly, so I just gave him a light kick. Meanwhile, down below, Lin Han was still hesitating. Seeing that he was actually considering it, Lu Zhixue flew into a rage. Hurry up and reject her, she urgently shook Lin Han's arm, half threatening and half pleading. What are you hesitating for? Just say you don't need her. I've done so much for you. How can you waver because of someone else's words? Lin Han, perhaps annoyed by her noise, Lin Han pushed her away. Can you just be quiet? He didn't use much force, but Lu Zhixue was already frail and unsteady on her feet. She stumbled and fell, crashing into the champagne tower in the center of the hall. After a chaotic shattering of glass, Lu Zhixue sat on the floor, drenched and hollow-eyed. I couldn't help but feel a bit emotional, although I did often send people to whisper in her ear, saying many things about how Helenhen would eventually change his heart and abandon her to marry a wealthy heiress. I never expected her to fall into such despair. Helenhen, I've done so much for you. I've even lost myself for you. How could you? She choked up. How could you treat me like this? Putting everything else aside, she might have genuinely loved Helenhen, yet, weighing the pros and cons, Helenhen couldn't bring himself to reject me outright. Instead, he said, about the marriage alliance, let me think it over, give me some time to consider. I covered my lips, unable to hold back a laugh. He couldn't really think I wanted to marry him, could he? He's a grown man, wavering between two women right in front of them, and still believes both women are hopelessly in love with him. I found it rather unbelievable and silently asked the system, is the author of this novel mentally sound? After waiting a while without getting a response, I suddenly remembered. I had thrown the system into the blacklist months ago and had completely forgotten to let it out. After removing the system's block, the system was on its last breath. Host, you're so cruel. I had no time to deal with it and told it to look at the scene before us. The villain has achieved success and fame. While the male and female leads have been suppressed like this, have I succeeded in the redemption? The system took one look and immediately screamed, how did it end up like this? Its voice carried a hint of confusion. The redemption mission is indeed complete, but how did the protagonists end up like this? If the protagonists fall now, how will the rest of the plot unfold? I became alert. What happens next in the plot? The system replied. The male lead defeats the villain once again and lives happily ever after with the female lead. I clenched my fist, feeling extremely indignant. I invested so much money in Lu Ziyuan. How could the male and female leads just use their protagonist halo to send the villain back to square one? I always said this author has a few screws loose. I cursed under my breath. But looking at the still entangled male and female leads, who seemed utterly hopeless, the only thing I cared about was, will the plot automatically correct itself, like forcibly making the villain stupid later on or something? The system muttered and calculated for a while, utterly baffled. No, why is this happening? The male lead should have been promoted to the decision-making level by now. So why has he been sent away instead? The system couldn't make heads or tails of it, while I averted my gaze, acting as if nothing was wrong. I just made things a little difficult for the protagonist to make the villain's entrepreneurial journey smoother. Knowing that the subsequent plot wouldn't be forcibly corrected, I became much bolder. How do you want to deal with them? I turned and asked Lu Ziyuan. Lu Ziyuan's eyes were still brimming with tears. Hearing my question, he nodded haphazardly. Whatever. Anything is fine. I was about to frown when Lu Ziyuan couldn't hold back first. Yu Xiao, why are you so good to me? He sniffled. Just a few months ago I was still a poor kid carrying bricks at a construction site, burdened with piles of debt. Yet you picked me up and brought me home. With reddened eyes, he bared his heart to me. I thought I was doomed to eternal damnation, but you gave me a new life. I've always been hard-hearted, but at this moment, even I felt somewhat moved. I suppose it might be because, after raising him for several months, I've actually developed some feelings for him. The puppy is still quite adorable, so, for once, I refrained from saying anything sarcastic and instead reached out to pat his furry head. He obediently lowered his head, offering me all his loyalty. This was good. I decided to give him a little reward, ignoring the disheveled male and female leads. I once again took Lu Ziyuan's hand. I forgot to introduce. He has another identity. I raised Lu Ziyuan's hand high, glanced around, and stared at He Lin Han with a provocative smile. He is my boyfriend. A flicker of confusion passed over He Lin Han's face below. He probably doesn't understand. In his mind, I clearly intended to form a marriage alliance with him, so why would I now publicly announce my relationship with Lu Ziyuan as a couple? It was Lu Zhixue who finally snapped back to reality at this moment. The rumored fiancé of yours is him? I nodded, yes. So when you were saying all those things earlier, you looked just like a clown. Seeing her completely stunned expression, I emphasized again, really foolish. Honestly, Lu Zhixue finally realized belatedly, you've been playing me from the very beginning. She became hysterical. No wonder. It was after you appeared that the He family's business started to decline one after another. It was after you appeared that He Lin Han began to be absent-minded. Everything is because of you. She was right, but what could she do even if she realized it now? The butler opened the manor's gate, and several uniformed police officers walked in. The others stepped back upon seeing the police. The officer glanced around and asked, who is He Lin Han and Lu Zhixue? He Lin Han hesitated before stepping forward. I am He Lin Han. May I ask why you are here? The officer showed his badge and announced clearly, you are suspected of infringing on commercial secrets. In accordance with the provisions of the Criminal Procedure Law of the People's Republic of China, you are now under arrest. He Lin Han and Lu Zhixue looked at Lu Ziyuan in disbelief. Did you call the police? Lu Zhixue cried out in disbelief. I'm your sister. How could you call the police on me? She wasn't very cooperative, so she had to be handcuffed and forcibly taken away. Before He Lin Han left, he gave me a deep, heavy look. I didn't take him seriously at all, as expected. Even if he managed to extricate himself, it would be difficult for him to make a comeback in the future. The fallen champagne tower was quickly cleaned up, the soothing music continued to play, and I raised my glass, wishing everyone a wonderful evening. The crowd, still in a daze, immediately chimed in, and the atmosphere quickly became harmonious and joyful. I smiled as I looked at the crowd, and the moment Lu Ziyuan took my hand, I heard the system's announcement in my mind, "Host, you have completed the task of redeeming the villain. Do you wish to leave this world?" Before I could answer, Lu Ziyuan seemed to sense something. He suddenly tightened his grip on my hand, then quickly let go. He turned to look out the window and asked me casually, "The dog ears and tail I bought have arrived. Would you like to try them tonight?" A smirk tugged at my lips. "Get dressed and come to my room." Lu Ziyuan also smiled, but a constant unease lingered in the depths of his eyes, lending him an air of fragility. Just as I turned to leave, he called out to me, "Yu Zhao." I looked back and heard him ask, "Will you abandon me?" The system in my mind repeatedly confirmed to me, "Are you leaving this world?" I walked to the balcony, facing the cool night breeze, and answered no one's question. I just whispered softly, "Shoo, everyone be quiet." Under my relentless suppression, problems within the He Corporation were exposed one after another, and the matter of Lu Zhixua stealing confidential information was thoroughly investigated, resulting in a 3-year prison sentence. On the day she was imprisoned, He Linhan came to see me. He didn't mention Lu Zhixua at all, but instead tried to negotiate with me. "Miss you, if I were willing to marry you, would you be able to help our He family overcome this crisis?" I thought he had some trump card to dare negotiate with me, but it turned out to be just this. I immediately felt annoyed. Are the standards for male leads this low nowadays? I left a disdainful comment before turning to leave. He Linhan still wanted to chase after me, but Lu Ziyuan stopped him. "What kind of trash dares to covet Yu Zhao?" Without holding back, he threw a punch at He Linhan's face, turning it swollen like a pig's head. He Linhan slunk away in disgrace. After that, I heard that although the He Corporation didn't go bankrupt, its scale had shrunk several times, forcing them to move out of their original office building. "I leased that building," Lu Ziyuan said, standing in my office and pointing at the distant structure. The He Corporation's sign used to hang there, but now, it bears the logo of Xinjiang Technology. The morning sun from the east shone upon it, making the large characters glisten as if reborn. The villain who crawled out of the mud was bathed in sunlight, and when he looked back at me, there was not a trace of shadow left in his eyes. I thought he had managed to walk out on his own strength. Resting my chin in my hand, I watched him and finally made a decision. "System, I've made up my mind," I said in my heart. "I want." A white light emanated from my body, and the smile on Lu Ziyuan's face vanished abruptly, replaced by boundless panic and despair. "Yu Zhao." He lunged forward, only to be blocked by an invisible barrier. I lifted my eyes to look at him through the radiance. "I noticed it long ago. You've even stopped calling me master now." Lu Ziyuan immediately began to stammer corrections. "I'll call you, I will, master, master, please don't go." He knelt on the ground, almost sobbing, "Please, don't leave me." The light on my body grew increasingly dazzling, quickly blurring my figure. Lu Ziyuan slumped to the ground, the tears in his eyes trembling unsteadily before suddenly falling like broken strings of beads. He was crying with his head lowered when I spoke up. "What are you doing?" Lu Ziyuan looked up in shock, scrambled to his feet, and stared at me over and over. Then suddenly overjoyed, he pulled me into a tight embrace. "You didn't leave, you didn't abandon me. That's great. That's really great." He was both laughing and crying, while I pushed him away in disgust, but couldn't move him, so I had to let him be. "So you really can hear the system talking?" I snorted lightly, but seeing how scared he looked, I didn't blame him further. When Lu Ziyuan's emotions had calmed down a bit, his eyes sparkled as he asked me, "Are you staying in this world because of me?" I rolled my eyes. "Actually, in my world, I went through something similar to what you did," I said, crossing my arms. "But that stepsister who sold my family's company secrets and caused our bankruptcy, I already ran her over with my car." I watched Lu Ziyuan's expression, but all I could see in his eyes was heartache. I didn't expect him to be so sentimental. I patted his hand to comfort him. "It's fine, I was driving very fast. She's absolutely dead beyond dead, but I also died together with her, and after death, the system caught me here to do tasks. I chose to stay only because there's nothing in that world that I care about anymore. It doesn't have much to do with you. Lu Ziyuan simply didn't believe it. It can't have nothing to do with me at all, master. Just admit it. You would be soft-hearted towards me. He was right. I thought for a moment and felt that I should set a good example of honesty for him, so I didn't insist on denying it. Most of the time, people are soft-hearted towards their former selves, I said. I raised you very well, and I am very satisfied with myself. Lu Ziyuan pressed his face against my palm, a smile glinting in the corners of his eyes. Thank you for saving yourself during those days when you felt utterly alone, and even more, thank you for being willing to come into my world. He knelt on one knee before me, holding up a sparkling ring. Just as I thought he was about to say something sentimental, his face flushed red. But his words had nothing to do with a proposal, actually. The reason my company is called Xinyang Technology is because you gave me the inspiration. He stammered an explanation. No matter what, you are the sun that has illuminated my life. His face was flushed beyond belief. I know I don't deserve to be the factor that influences your life plans, but I want to ask for a chance, to allow me to stand by your side when I'm strong enough. When you want someone to spend the rest of your life with, I hope I can be your first choice. He nervously swallowed, his hand trembling as he held up the ring. I lowered my gaze and reached out to take the ring. Let's see how you perform, I said. He was so happy that he jumped up directly, which was really quite unsteady. I held back my laughter, turned my face, and saw the building not far away with the words, New Sun Technology, shining on it. The sunlight shone on it, sparkling brilliantly. After hearing the story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.